Hey everyone, my name is Tristan Reese. I'm the Director of Family Formation at Family Equality. Family Equality is the nation's leading nonprofit dedicated to supporting LGBTQ plus families and those who wish to form them. Usually my job is traveling the country and helping prospective parents learn how they can build their families, given where they are in the country, given what their vision is for the kind of family they want to create. And over the past week and a half, I now have a brand new job, and that is heading up all of these online programs that are happening to serve our families, to serve parents, to serve prospective parents during this really wild and uncertain time. I myself am a parent of 3 kids, all of whom are now home full-time, ranging in age from 2.5 to 12. So that's awesome. So for the families out there, I stand in solidarity with you as you're either working from home, homeschooling, unschooling, or trying to do all the things. And one thing that we thought we would bring to you is some hairstyling skills. Our hope is that this is going to hit 2 points. One is for those parents who are seeing their kids getting a little bit bedraggled. How can you help support their hair so that they're still feeling good, so that you don't have so many tangles that you can't manage it? And then also for how to style and have fun with hair, either your kids for their American Girl dolls, or older siblings for little siblings, or you as a parent. I know a lot of gay dads are often like, oh, never had long hair, don't really know how to French braid. Can't promise you that you'll learn how to French braid, but I know that Alex is going to bring you some amazing skills today. So I'm really excited to introduce Alex Markovic.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Nailed it.
Right. So good job.
You're welcome. And I actually know Alex because Alex does my hair in Portland at Bishop's Cut and Color.
You do.
Alex, did you know that my hair is actually curly? I've never grown it out this much. It's been a lot of weeks since I've gotten to see you in person.
Right.
Really excited you're here. Thank you so much to Bishop's. It's just so important that people find ways to support these smaller businesses during this time when we're all stuck at home. So I think, supporting you, supporting your work is one thing I'm really excited to do. And I'm going to hand it over to you. And if folks have any questions or comments along the way, just put them in the chat box, and we'll make sure that Alex gets to them throughout the session. So Alex, I'm going to go off video. It's going to be all you, but I will still be here supporting you quietly.
Thank you, Tristan. I really appreciate it. Awesome. Well, let's get started. Well, like Tristan said, I'm Alex. I've been doing hair for about 7 years now. And I am currently actually studying to be a nurse, and I am doing hair on the side now. And then I did want to say too that this information is going to go quite fast. So I do encourage people to take notes. And I'm assuming this is also going to be able to be played back, and you can kind of review the information. I'm going to go over a few things today. First, I want to give like a fair warning that I will be using mannequin heads to demo. They can be kind of like deemed terrifying to some people. I kind of forget that sometimes as like a hairstylist. We all have used one before and we're so used to it. It is the best way to demo hair. It is kind of the most realistic. So I'm going to be using those today. I'm going to be doing a few different cuts, 2 different haircuts, and I'm going to be doing braids as well, and also some like tips and tricks to how to like maintain hair. And so let's kind of get started. I'm going to be doing my very best for positioning with the mannequin heads. It can be kind of hard to see when you typically do these kinds of videos. It's very like close up. I'm going to do my best to kind of maneuver things around. I'm going to go over a few tools first and how to use them. So first I'm going to show you shears. These are the ones that I use. You can get shears kind of any grocery store in like the beauty aisle. These are mine. I'm going to teach you how to use them in a second. I would get a comb, preferably a comb that has like a fine tooth side. This is the fine tooth side, and this is the coarse fine tooth, whatever the word is. Kind of like wider bristles in between. And then I have like, this is more optional. This is like a bristle brush, a brush that is kind of like, it doesn't necessarily tug the hair when you comb it, all that kind of stuff. This is very optional. It's a leave-in conditioner, which I'm going to be going over. A water bottle if you have it, and then some like hair ties. All of this stuff you should be able to get at your nearest grocery stores. But cool, first I'm gonna go over shears and how to use them. So these right here, you typically hold them just kind of like this. Your ring finger tends to be on the top where this kind of like lever is, which your pinky goes onto. People typically like to go like middle finger in. You want to use your ring finger. So you have the index finger kind of like on the top of the shear, kind of helping stabilize and support it. And then your thumb goes into the lower one. A lot of people tend to go like all the way in with it. You kind of just like rest it on the surface. And one thing that a lot of people don't know when you're using shears, the best way to control it actually is to only move your thumb. You typically don't move like this part of your hand. And this is kind of like the part that takes a lot of practice. But this is the best way to kind of control it. So if it kind of like rests over here, this is the top part is the only part that really moves when you're cutting hair. You want to be really, really careful with these guys. And I'll teach you some more on how to use them as well. Overall, this is not going to replace your hairstylist. This is not going to be perfect. This is going to be kind of tips and tricks because no matter what, people are going to be cutting their kids' hair because who knows how long the hair salons are going to be staying closed. So no matter what, I want you guys to do it safely, and I want you to try to do it as well as possible too. So that's why I'm here. Perfect. So I'm going to be going over 2 haircuts first, and then we're going to go into like styling and braiding. I'm going to be doing a very, very basic long cut and a very basic short cut. I wanted to do it more so where it's both shears rather than clippers. Clippers I'll kind of go over verbally, but clippers tend to be actually a little bit harder to make look good and make look blended. So I'll be going over with shears too, and I just want to give you the like most useful tools to last you the longest amount of time too. I'm going to be going over like kids maintenance as well. So first I'm going to go over to the long cut. Warning again, I'm going to be using a mannequin head, and I'm bringing her in now. This is Gwyneth. First, I'm going to go over sectioning. So one of the most important things with cutting hair, too, is the cleaner you work, the better. So sectioning is usually the first step that you do before you start cutting hair, just to kind of get yourself organized and work section by section. So I am doing a 6 section, 2 down here, 2 in the middle, and 2 on the top. So you typically start with the bottom ones first. So this right here is the point where the occipital bone is. So if you kind of feel the back of your head, there's like a bone right there. That's where it's going to start, right? So you're going to be going off of the middle here, and you're going to be taking that section to the back of the ear. So those are your first 2 sections. The middle 2 sections are going to kind of go over along, this is the parietal ridge. So if you take a comb and you kind of like rock it against the side of the head, that's the parietal ridge right here. So you're going to take that section all the way around, and this is what's called a horseshoe section because it looks like a horseshoe. Now, this is the top here. This is assuming that this client is parting their hair down the middle. So you want to do this to wherever the person parts their hair. So if it's on the side, the part would be right here or right here. So we're going to be working section by section, starting at the bottom. But first, we want to figure out where to start cutting. So we're going to be doing a trim cut to get rid of dead ends. So I'm going to let these 2 sections down. You want to start with the hair wet. The wetter the hair is, the better. It's going to be a lot easier to control. For this first section, before you cut it, for a lot of clients, I tend to split this into 2 just to manage the hair, but this is finer hair. So you can kind of see it should be able to cut fairly easily. To figure out where to start cutting, I use I don't typically use this anymore, but this is a really good tip, is a white piece of paper. If you grab that and put it might be hard to see, but if you put it to the back of the hair, kind of comb it down, you can kind of see where you start seeing the white paper. So that's usually like a really good tool to use to figure out where to cut the hair to where it's going to be the healthiest, right? So this is optional, like I said. So this is a leave-in conditioner. I typically use like a liquid leave-in conditioner because creams tend to like coat the hair quite a bit. Liquid just penetrates the hair cuticle a lot better and easier. And so it's actually going to be conditioning the hair a lot easier as well. So I'm gonna spray section by section. Awesome, kind of comb that through. So I am going to start with her hair down. So these two sections right here, the occipital down, the head is always going to face down. The only reason why that is because this is where the head starts kind of dipping, and we don't want necessarily. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you do it kind of like this, whenever the client kind of like looks down, it kind of shows these like ridges in the hair due to graduation. Anyway, those are some bigger terms there. But we're just going to start with the head down for both of these sections. I'm going to kind of comb through. The smaller the sections are, the better, the more manageable. If you're just starting to cut hair, I really recommend you starting like 3/4 of an inch at a time. It might take you like an hour and a half to do the haircut, but it's better to do that than you take too big of sections and kind of start losing your guide. And I'll go over what the guide is in a second. So another thing with the shears, kind of jumping all over the place, but this is really, really important, is palming your shears. So to palm your shears, it basically brings the shears to a position where it's the safest. So you just take the thumb out and just put them in your palm. That is going to get it away from your client's face. And then you can, in fact, comb in the same time and with the same hand with the shears that you're holding. I'm very used to flipping my shears. I cut like this. So if you see me do that, I apologize. It's like subconscious at this point. So we're gonna kind of comb down and with the finger kind of drag down to where I wanna cut. You can see that. I put the comb in the other hand. We're gonna cut our first section. Another tip, you never wanna cut past the second knuckle right here. No matter if you're cutting from like the top or in here. So you actually don't cut that far in. So you want to do very little sections at a time. Awesome. Let's do the other side here. Kind of at a weird angle here, so I don't know if this is going to turn out the most even, but we'll see. Okay. So now we're going to tilt the head back up. Every section that we do, we're going to check to make sure that it's even. So I'm going to comb it down and kind of like take a look back. I can see that this side is a little bit longer. So we are going to tilt the head back down. A little bit more off of this side. And you want to double check every single section too. Tilt the head back up. Yep, that looks a little bit more even to me. Perfect. So it's nice to have like a spray bottle right by you. If the hair starts kind of drying out, kind of just like refresh it. So we're gonna keep going up the head. I'm gonna let down this third section right here. This is where we're really going to make sure that we're only taking like 3/4 inch sections. Awesome, there we go. So I'm gonna kind of comb that down. I'm using the clip to kind of like get it out of the way. And I'm only working with one little subsection at a time. So when I am combing this down, I'm using the wide tooth side of the comb. This is going to prevent like tension and make sure that it's going to be even when the hair is it's in relaxed state. So I'm going to put this down. So you can see that there is this hair that hasn't been cut yet. And if you lift up that hair, you can see that section that's been previously cut. So that is called your guide. This is what you're going to follow for the rest of the haircut. Hence why this first section right down here is the most important. So we're going to cut that. I'm going to keep going up the head too. So we're going to go with this side. 3/4 inch subsection. Perfect. All right, I'm going to step back, take a look. Looks even to me. I'm going to, since we don't have a lot of time, I'm going to take the rest of this section down. But just note, 3/4 inch section, the smaller the sections, the better too. I think we have a question here. Fine tooth, kind of the comb or wide tooth. That's a really good question. The question is, were you using the fine tooth part of the comb or wide tooth part of the comb? That's what it's called, wide tooth. So I typically use the fine tooth part of the comb on like very straight hair and the wide tooth comb side for really, really curly hair. When you're using the fine tooth on curly hair, you're pulling in like really bringing a lot of tension to the hair to the point where when the hair is not in its like relaxed state, the section that you just cut is going to be actually higher than your guide. So then you're creating this like graduation. I don't know if you've ever seen that kind of like bob look where it's like stacked in the back. That's kind of what I'm saying here. It kind of creates this angle. So when you're using the wide tooth side of the comb, I would say in the beginning, that's probably going to be your best bet is to use the wide tooth. So I'm going to cut the rest here. Her hair is really, really fine, so I'm able to take bigger sections here. When you're getting kind of like to the face, to this front area here, if you turn the client's hair towards you, so if they're kind of like sitting there, they would go like this. Take that, get these little hairs. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to do the other side. And I am still following that guide right here. I'm not trying to create necessarily any new guide because that's when people start getting lost. If you can't find your guide, take an even smaller section. You always want to cut with the guide. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to let the rest down. Perfect. This is usually the part that doesn't have as much hair to cut because breakage is mostly up here due to the sun hitting right here or layers. So I'm going to comb all of this down. If the client kind of shakes their head too, it brings the hairs to their place and you can cut with the guide with how their hair usually lays, if that makes sense. Perfect. I'm going to turn the head to do the other side. You kind of see here. Okay, perfect. So this is that basic one length haircut. I also would recommend I'm going to teach you point cutting next. So what tends to happen with like one length haircuts, especially if the hair is really, really thick, tends to look really blunt at the bottom. So we're going to use like a point cutting technique to kind of diffuse lines, because now we're just cutting straight across. We're not adding texture in there. So I'm going to show you, if you like take all of the hair down and you see like there's there's one piece of hair there, hair that is just a bit too thick right there. I use the point of the shear and cut into it. You're not cutting length off. You shouldn't see much hair fall off, but you're just gonna point cut in very, very slightly within just an inch of the length. Just to kind of diffuse the lines a little bit more, just so it's not too like harsh. Perfect, done. Little side note here too, bangs. This is probably not the best time to get bangs, but I want to kind of give you little tips on how to trim them, because they like within a month, they're like already grown out, driving kids crazy. So I'm going to show you a little tip here. We don't want to create any new bangs. We want to just trim the existing bangs that are already there. So when you set the comb on the top of the head, where it kind of leaves the head, let's see here, where it kind of leaves the head is where the bang kind of starts. If you go anywhere behind that, you're actually going into the haircut and into the layering. We don't want the bangs over here. We want them up in the front. So when you're sectioning, this is also best doing dry. When you're sectioning, you have this like triangle right in the front. This is that bang area. So each corner here is at like the top, the middle of the brow. So if you kind of trace that line up, that's where it is on both sides. So you end up with like this triangle, right? So now the only thing, I wouldn't cut necessarily bangs straight across. That's where people kind of start messing up. I would most definitely do point cutting, like very, very little bit at a time, because you can always take more off. You can't put any back on. Cool. So we have a question here. Yes, I'm going to be doing a shortcut next with scissors, which actually should be coming up next. Next, any tips on cutting curly hair while dry to keep preferred shape? Yeah, that's a really good question. So you can most definitely still cut hair dry. It just might not be like, you might not be able to control it as well. When I'm in the salon, I typically cut curly hair dry. But yeah, you just want to be really careful. You can't really like, you can mess up curly hair, but it's much easier to kind of hide if you do mess it up. So yeah, just don't go all out. But yeah, just a little bit of time where it kind of like looks frizzy. Also, cutting your own hair is really, really hard. I don't even do it myself. That's like a whole different skill. So just be really careful if you do. A lot of people tend to like take their hair to the front. You're actually over directing the hair. So you're cutting shorter here. And then when you take it back, it ends up longer in the back and shorter in the front. So you just want to be careful to not end up with a mullet. That's one of the number one things that I see people do as a mistake. So I am going to be doing a shortcut really quick. I was grabbing these mannequin heads from the salon and I just like grabbed the nearest shortcut, and you will see it's quite funny. Somebody was experimenting on this head. But we have like a little asymmetrical bang moment. We'll just ignore that for now. I mean, it's a look. It's a look. I'm into it. It's cool. It's fun. And then I was hoping that the back was not going to be buzzed, but it is. So we're just going to kind of work around that. This is kind of a really good example for like, a lot of people tend to like, when they get their haircuts at home, keep the front kind of like a lot longer on the sides and much shorter in the back. So this is kind of like a good tip for how to like fix that. Perfect. I think another question. Also, not bashing on mullets whatsoever. It's one of my favorite looks of all time. I love doing them so much. But if that's not what you're going for, that's a tip to prevent you from doing that. Oh, I love mullets so much. So much. Wish my hair wasn't so fine or else I would totally get one. Okay, so we're gonna do a shortcut with shears. Clippers are a little bit harder. With clippers, the only thing that I'm gonna say, I would probably do like a clipper size number 4. The only reason why I'm not doing clippers is a lot of people like don't necessarily have them, and I wanted to do like as least amount of tools as possible, just to kind of get people through quarantine and kind of do things that are really, really essential. With clippers, number one thing that I see that people do as a mistake is they go too far up with clippers. So when you're, let's see, I'm going to use this as a clipper. If you are cutting with a clipper, you just kind of go up and off of the head. A lot of people tend to go up too far past the parietal ridge, which is that right here, ending up with just going a bit too close right here. So you just want to be really careful with that. And then once you're done with that clipper, the reason why I say a number 4 is a really good length is because it's like nice and trim, but not too short to where it's going to be a lot harder to blend to the top. I'm going to show you how to blend to the top. It's fairly easy. So we're just going to start with the sides first. When I cut short hair, I start usually the right side here, and I kind of section out at the parietal ridge. Doing this sitting down, which is very weird. Oh, we got some fun highlights over here. That's fun. So I'm going to clip that off to the side, and we're going to be worrying about the top later. I'm going to stand up here now, actually, so you won't be able to see my face. Just a few. Section this out a little bit nicer. The wetter the head, the better. Now, we're going to be working with one section at a time. So I'm going to do this first section right by the face here. The width of the section is like 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to move that off to the side. It is horizontal to the head. So think of this as kind of like piano keys. So I'm going to take that section and I'm going to pull it up off of the head. Now with cutting shear over comb, number one thing that people tend to get wrong is the position of the hands, right? So a lot of people think that you would take the finger like up from above and then cut into this. It's actually a lot easier to do it from the bottom here. And then you kind of want to slide the top of your fingers out a little bit. We're kind of creating this, like if you're looking at the front, this kind of shape going outward. And we're going to cut our first section. This is the important section because this is going to now be your guide. And this is what's going to set the length of the entire haircut. So the reason why I kind of hold out my fingers like that too is because it creates a taper at the bottom. Around the ears and around the neck, you typically have it like tighter. Let's see if I can tilt it up a little bit more. Okay, perfect. So this is kind of the length that I'm going for. I'm gonna wet the hair down just a little bit more. Let's see how we're doing on time here. Not too bad. So we're going to take our neck section. I'm going to do like a 1/2 inch, just so it's nice and clean. I'm going to pull it out along with the guide. And then if you kind of like move with your shears, I just want to make sure the guide is there. I can see it. And I'm going to cut the same length on that first section. It's going to look a little bit weird because mannequin hair tends to shoot straight out. Usually hair kind of lays down a little bit more, but you get the point. We're going to take our next section pull it out, top of the fingers, slide out just a little bit. And make sure you do not cut past the second knuckle. Okay, now, every few sections, I kind of stop and I want to just double check to make sure that everything is even. So I've been cutting kind of vertically now. So to kind of double check my work, like every 3 sections or so, I hold the hair kind of horizontal and just make sure that this is a straight line. And if it's not, just kind of point cut little pieces out just to make sure that it's all even. And so when you're going all around the head, you're staying consistent. And I do this every like 3 subsections. Perfect. Now I'm going to take another section. Pull the top out just a little bit. Make sure the guide is there. I'm not creating a new guide. Perfect, there's that. Let's do one more section. I'm gonna be doing only like the half of the head, just for time. Okay, now when you get to the bottom here, I'm bummed because this is already so buzzed. But this bottom part, just with the long cut, the head goes down. Neighbors are totally watching me right now, like, hey. So when the head is down, I'm able to access the nape just a little bit better. And I'm going with the contour of the head. So I'm kind of like tilting the bottom down, if that makes sense. Like I'm fairly close to the head, but the top is still going outward. It's kind of creating like this diamond shape. Like if you look at the front, this part goes out. And when we get to the top, we're going to create this angle up and the top is going to be flat, if that makes sense. Like if you draw it out, it'll look like a diamond. Cool. Let's see if there's a question. Oh no, just came back. Okay, it looks like there's some people that are back. Cool, perfect. So now a lot of people have a hard time just like trimming up around the ears and like the front here. The way to do it with shears is like for this front part right here, I kind of comb the hair forward, and whatever stragglies there are, it's kind of hard to do on a mannequin head. But I kind of just cut a little bit off right there. So when you pull it down, it's like a nice frame around the face. With ears, ears are very flexible. Don't be afraid to really maneuver it around. And you're just gonna cut really carefully around the ear, or if you have a trimmer, just like a very little bit at a time. That's kind of like a part that a lot of people spend a lot of time on. Okay, cool. Now that I did this half of the head, I'm now gonna do the other half of the head for time, but now we're gonna move on to the top. I'm gonna wet it down just a little bit more. So I kind of break the top up in 2 parts, the crown area and then the front right here. So we're gonna focus on the crown first. I'm gonna create this like half of a pie section. I'm gonna tilt this up just a little bit more, there we go. So the half of the pie section kind of starts, if you put the comb kind of on the head, this is called the apex. It is the most top part of the head. It starts right there, and I kind of create this like horizontal section right here. And the reason why I call it a pie section is because now we're gonna be cutting in like little triangular pie sections, like little slices of pie. So I'm gonna start on the far right side first. This is your first little triangle section. I'm going to take that. And do you see, let's see if you can see here. There we go. You can see this hair right here that I've cut already. This is still my guide. I'm going to follow it. So the cut is going to start right here and go up. Remember, we are creating like almost this point in the head. So you don't want to cut the top at the same length as, if you're going for like more shorter on the sides, longer on the top kind of look, which is a very like classic shortcut look. We are going to go for that look today. So I'm going to pull it out, find my guide, and cut into it. Now I'm going to take the next slice of pie. I'm going to pull the hair from the previous section too, because that is now my guide. I'm going to pull the hair back. I can see, I don't know if you can see the hair that I cut previously. I'm going to cut with that guy now. And that's going to go all around the crown. I'm going to do that really quick. I haven't cut hair in a little bit. This is fun. I miss it. Okay. Perfect. The crown is now done. Now, if you notice, like there is like hair that is overhanging like on top of the sides, just kind of pull it out and you can kind of point cut into it very carefully. You don't want to cut into your knuckles, but just point cut into it just to like diffuse the line because we're creating very sharp edges right now. Just kind of diffusing that line a little bit. Now let's go to the front. So one thing that I see a lot of people doing is taking the front a little bit too short. I'll show you how to kind of prevent that from happening too. So I am going to be working down the middle. So when you're sectioning the hair, it's going to go down the middle and you're going to end up with this total like 90s style. I totally had this haircut before where it's like just down the middle like that. And then we're going to work down the head kind of horizontally, like piano keys. So I'm going to take the first section over here. I'm going to pull it up. And I'm going to use that first slice of pie as my guide. Now, to prevent going too short in the front, at this point, you're going to be kind of over-directing back a little bit. So you kind of tilt the hair back. So this part is going to be longer because you're going up this way. You're still using that guide from that previous section. Tilt it back just a little bit. It's my guide. Cut into it. And I'm making sure to connect with the sides too. So I'm picking up some of this a little bit just to make sure that it's going to blend with the sides. Over directing back. Directing back, perfect. This sideburn is ridiculous, but. So there's one. This is like the before, this is the after. I didn't cut any of the bang because it's already fairly short. But if you end up doing so, I would just take that front section, kind of pull it forward and just point cut and just a little bit at a time, take some weight off, and it's just gonna help blend in a little bit more. Cool. Does anybody have any questions so far? No, I'm going a bit fast, but I want to get out as much like useful information as possible. Because next I'm going to be going over braids. This is the really fun part. This is the part that kiddos can really enjoy with like their dolls on each other's hair. Dads can practice. Let's see what time. Okay, got a little bit to go. So I'm going to grab a new, actually, let's grab our previous, our long cut back. Why do you use scissors with sedated, seated 1/2-inch cut? So, 1/2 of it. I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. What do you use the scissors with? The serrated 1/2-inch cut. I'm not sure. Overall, too, like, I know I might not be able to answer the questions like fully on here. Am I back? Okay. So you're more than welcome to send me a DM on Instagram. I'm going to be answering, I can answer a lot of like customized questions on there too. So on my Instagram, you can DM me at Sasha Markovic, SASHA MARKOV, V as in Victor, IC. So we're just gonna, you can always like ask me questions after this on that if I'm not able to answer it on here. So I'm gonna show you 3 different braids. Braids are useful for a couple of reasons. When kids are less active, now that we're not going outside as much, not doing things as often outside, kids' hair tends to get really tangled very, very quickly. So it tends to be very dry and very fine. So it kind of coils together, creating like almost these dreads. And I'm sure people with little kids have experienced this before. And I do see it in the salon quite often. Some tips and tricks, leave-in conditioner is going to help immensely. The only reason why in-shower conditioners, you put in, rinse out, doesn't really end up doing too much. When you have something that you leave in, it's gonna give it time to really absorb into the hair, making it a lot easier to brush out, all of that kind of stuff. Excuse me, with braids, too, if you braid the hair and with some like leave-in conditioner in there and with it wet, doing braids on wet hair is actually a lot easier too. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. When they wake up, it's gonna kind of dry. And then when you take it out, it's gonna end up with these like cool, fun waves. I'm gonna try to go over 3 specific braids: a French braid, a Dutch braid, and a fishtail. A fishtail is really, really fun and very easy too. And it ends up looking like this mermaid tail almost. So I'm gonna wet down the hair just a little bit, and we're gonna go over a French braid really quick. There's a lot of tutorials online. This does take a lot of practice, so don't feel discouraged. Just keep trying, you'll get it. It's very, very fun. It's a fun activity with the kiddos. And it gets kind of like the creative side out. You can kind of take sections everywhere, do a whole bunch of braids, or do one specific braid like around the front and kind of like clip it in the back. You can get very creative with it. So I'm gonna take, just so it's easiest for you to see, like a section over here. Okay, awesome. So we're gonna do a traditional French braid. So French braid is the most common braid. It's a 3-strand braid. So there's 3 strands that you're maneuvering. I kind of take 2 fingers and I created my 3 subsections here. The hardest thing with braids is maneuvering your fingers. So I'm gonna show you kind of a little trick here. So I have the most right section here in one hand, and then the middle one kind of on my, between my index finger and the thumb, and the left one on this side. Now, the only thing that we're doing is bringing the side pieces into the middle, and we're gonna alternate the sides, right? So I am going to be working with sections going underneath the middle subsection. So we're gonna start with the right, we're gonna go under, and I'm exchanging it, bringing that middle piece to the right, okay? And now we're gonna switch sides. So now we're gonna take that far left piece, bring it underneath into the middle. And it's really important to just kind of keep all of the sections separate. That is why it's much easier to do this on wet hair. Now we're gonna bring back to the right, we're gonna bring that section on the right into the middle. Kind of bring it kind of tight, keep it nice and clean. And then we're gonna go left is going into the middle. So all you're really doing is alternating sides, bringing hair into the middle. So the right side goes into the middle. The left side goes into the middle. Does that kind of make sense? The right side to the middle, the left side into the middle. You know what I just realized? I'm doing a Dutch braid. They're very, very similar braids, and I'll show you what the difference is. So the right goes into the middle, left goes into the middle. And we're gonna go all the way down. You can see it's creating a fun little braid. Let's go all the way down. This is probably my most favorite braid. The difference between a Dutch braid and a French braid is with the Dutch braid, you saw that we were going under. With French, you're going over. So I'll show you that. And you'll be able to see a difference between the two braids. So I'm gonna take my 2 fingers, create my 3 sections, and now we're gonna go over. So the far right piece goes into the middle, but over that middle piece. Before we were going under, we're going over now. The far left goes over. Far right one goes over into the middle. The left goes over. Keeping the sections separate. In beauty school, this was my worst nightmare. I was terrible at braiding. It took some practice. This always takes some practice, but get there eventually. Okay, so going all the way down, they look fairly similar because they're smaller sections. But you can see that the one in the front, the braid is more exposed. You can see this one looks a little bit clearer because the hair, let's kind of fan these out a little bit. That's another thing is you can just fan out braids like that, make them a little bit more fun. Kind of see a little bit of a difference between the two. This is typically the technique that you use to like cornrow because the braids are more exposed. Yeah, so these are the 2 different braids. And now we're gonna do the fishtail one really quick. So we've got 4 minutes, I'm gonna do it really quick. It's super, super easy. And it's probably the most fun braid that the kids are going to really, really like. So we've been doing a 3-strand braid. This is only a 2-strand braid. So all we're doing is we're gonna take 1 finger and split it down the middle. Now we only have 2 sections to work with. Now, all you do is you kind of wiggle a finger and take a little tiny section, little tiny, tiny section, and you bring it over into the left braid. Now you take on the left side, a little tiny section, you kind of wiggle your finger through and you bring it to the other hand. And you're gonna do this. This one takes a little bit more time because you're working with very small pieces. So you kind of take a little tiny section, bring it over. Kind of wiggle your finger in, bring it over. And it ends up looking like a little fishtail. Let's do it really quick. The question is what kind of bands I'm using. I'm just using like these little tiny rubber bands. You can also get them at a grocery store. They're really, really cheap. And they're fairly strong too. They don't necessarily hold like a huge ponytail, but they're really, really good for little braids like this. A little tiny section at a time. And a fishtail braid really comes to life when you kind of fan it out a little bit, like I did with this one. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay, I didn't go all the way down, but this is a time-consuming one, so. Okay, perfect. So there's a little fishtail, and I'm gonna just kind of separate out that braid just a little bit by tugging on it. And you can see it's like a little tail. And you can do this in like a way bigger section too. Like you can take the entire back, split it in half, and do it all the way down the head too. So that's all the time that we have now. I hope you guys learned something. I am going to be, I would be delighted to answer any questions whatsoever. You can reach me on Instagram again, and my Instagram is at Sasha Markovic. That's an alarm to stop. SASHAMARKOVIC. And I can answer any other questions if you guys have them. But yeah, I'll take it over back to Tristan here.
Oh, there I am. I was like, I'm trying. Thank you so much, Alex. This was amazing. It looks like people still have like more questions. So they're like, can there be another one? So I'll ask you that offline. So I'm not putting you on the spot in front of everybody. But thank you so much for, dedicating your time and really donating your time to family equality. I know you're studying hard to be a nurse, and boy, do I have more appreciation for nurses now than I ever did before. So I was already very excited that you are doing that. And now I'm like doubly excited that you're going to be out there on the front line saving lives for as long as you can. So thank you so much. And then for all of our viewers, please feel free to go to familyequality.org/neighborhood. And that's where you can find all of the other events that we are hosting. We have more story hours coming up this week. We have a hip hop dance class, circus skills. We're going to have a makeup tutorial next week, a drag makeup tutorial. So we have a lot of amazing things coming. And if you have anything that you want to request that we do cover and offer for families, go ahead and go to that website, and you can send me an email and let me know what it is that we can do for you to help you feel connected and bring some joy to your life during this this very strange and uncertain time that we're all living through. So thank you everyone so much, and I look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.